Charge them with assault. You might be.
I'd like to call the order of the village board meeting of Monday, December 18th, 2017, and we'll open with a silent prayer meditation. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mayor Berman?
Here.
Trustee Lowry?
Here.
Trustee Curtis? Here. Trustee Carroll?
Here.
Trustee Martinez?
Here.
And Trustee Gately?
Here.
No audience comments. Trustee comments?
No.
Consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Curtis? Yeah. And Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
And under new business, item number 1, Mr. Toth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item number 1 is a resolution approving Route 31 TIF facade grant funding for the property located at 110 John Street in North Aurora. The property owner is requesting $4,987.50 for 19 windows. The Committee of the Whole did discuss this item on December 4th and recommend that staff move forward with approving resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? As for our new, okay. All those, clerk, call the roll, please.
Trustee Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
And Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Item number 2, Mr. Hannah.
Thank you. Item number 2 is approval of a resolution approving certain updates to the Human Resource Manual. The state very recently passed a law requiring all municipalities to have policies prohibiting sexual harassment and various other requirements. We've already had those types of policies on place for many years, but we did go back and tweak our policies to meet the new requirements, primarily related to having certain reporting procedures and references to various agencies in the policies. So we have a requirement to have this in place by January 15th, which is why it's coming to the board for approval tonight, rather than typically going to a committee meeting first. The attached changes are included in the resolution. One other note, we are planning on conducting training for all employees on these topics later in January. So,
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Is that training going to be open to the board too, I assume?
we haven't really talked about that, but it's something I think maybe Steve and I can talk about later on and let you know. Yeah.
It's not a requirement.
I don't believe it's a requirement, no. We were planning on doing the training for a while, and just happened that these new requirements were passed by the state. So that's something Steve and I can talk about later on, let you know. Thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Curtis?
Yes.
And Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
Item 3, Mr. Laskowski.
Good evening, Mayor. This item before you is the first project in a series of projects that are going to improve the water systems throughout town. This project is a drilling of well number 9. It was part of the improvements that we had bonded for earlier. This will be the first project occurring on well number 9. So after following this project, we'll also be constructing a transmission main to get the water from the well to the treatment plant, and installing a pump and motor at the bottom of the well to get the water out. The bid today is, the low bidder was Water Well Solutions. The recommendation from our consulting engineer and myself is to award the project, the bid, in the amount of $654,762.50 to Water Well Solutions out of Elburn. The bids came in well. They were $78,000 under the engineer's estimate and about $93,000 under our under the budget number. I want to point out something in the table in the memo that we did request 2 bids this time, a base bid and an alternate bid. To clarify, the alternate bid was if the village were to allow the contractor to drill 24 hours a day. So in the past, it was practiced that we would allow the operation to go 24 hours if we could get it at a cheaper price. What you'll notice here is that Water Well Solutions was able to provide us the same price for drilling just during normal working hours. So in this instance, the residents of Chesterfield won't be impacted by the sound of the project throughout the night. So.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. When is that to be completed?
I believe the completion date for this one is May 1st on this one.
Any other discussion? Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Trustee Gately?
Yes.
Trustee Martinez?
Yes.
Trustee Carroll?
Yes.
Trustee Curtis?
Yes.
Trustee Lowry?
Yes.
I have no old business. I have nothing else. Village President report. Committee reports. Trustee comments?
I have a comment. I was just noticing as I was driving in here, we've spent, I don't know how much money, thousands of dollars on new signs throughout the village in our branding initiative. The one sign that we seem to have missed is the sign that's right in front of the village hall. So I would like to see staff maybe look into possibly replacing that sign to kind of match the sign that's going up on the corner of 31 and 56.
All right, any other comments? Administrator's report, Mr. Bosco.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have just one item under my report tonight. In your packet, you have, speaking of the community sign, we had a design, it's listed as option B. I only included option B in the alternate that we're looking at. There were several options that we were working with this company. Basically, they've built the stone structure and the LED screens are coming in the next 3 weeks or so. That's what we anticipate. We anticipate it going live by mid-January. That being said, when we were out there, before they put the lettering up and the logo, we tested the colors up against the light gray stone. And we always knew that that brown logo might not work, so we had them draw up an alternate, which would be to put our brown and blue logo on a white background so that it pops. Okay, if you have it, it's also on your monitors now, if you have your monitor on. But anyway, so the lettering, where it's Village of in blue and North Aurora in white, it shows up pretty decent, but just to make sure that it shows up even better, we went to the sign company and said, is there any enhancements that you would recommend before we put these letters up? And they recommended option C, which is to also put a blue outline on the white lettering. And they think that that'll make it pop. And that being said, we are still looking at what we're going to do with our welcome signs as far as color. We haven't been out there because of the weather lately, because of the cold temperatures. But we are eventually trying to see if this works, because they're going to fabricate these indoors. If this works, that might be it is one of the options we were looking for, our welcome sign lettering as well. This might be a good test to see if that one works, then maybe it translates well to the other welcome signs. So with the board's approval, I just want to use option C at this point. Staff is recommending that we go with the sign company's recommendation for the logo and the lettering.
Hey, Steve.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, I drive around the village all day, and I look at all the signs, and there's a definite lack of uniformity right now with the signs. I don't think I've seen two that match. That said, I really don't think the blue outlining is something we want to mess with, because outlining now is adding another layer, another dimension to the logo. And if you take a look at what's trending now in logos and fonts and things like that, it's keeping it clean and simple. And I really don't like how it looks with the blue outline. I'm all for changing the logo part of it, but I'd like to keep the lettering white. Let's just keep it simple, blue Village of, white North Aurora, and let's just go with that. You know, I think we should just go with that theme and get all these signs changed as soon as we can.
Do we have a motion to,
I don't need a motion. I mean, if the direction of the board is to keep the lettering white, that's fine. I just wanted, before we put the lettering on, I just wanted the board's direction. So
well, what did the consultants, what did they say about color white, or why do they recommend the outlining in blue?
The white lettering on this stone is actually in the picture is essentially the picture they took. Now, obviously, it's never translates on video as much as it does if you're in person, but that is the actual stone out there. So it's pretty light, and so white will show up well, but it won't show up, they said, as well as if you put the outline on it. Now, this is going to be lit at night as well, so it should be more visible. We're just being extra cautious and, making sure that the board had a chance to put the blue outline on first, if that's what you wanted to do.
Is the blue outline on the return of the letter, on the side of the letter?
No, it's actually on the front of the letter, so it'll be on the front.
What's on the side of the letter?
It would probably also be blue, it'll translate over, but you'll see the blue on the front of the letter. It won't just be on the side.
I think it looks good either way.
I think it looks good either way, too,
Okay.
but
I mean,
I don't have any problem with the
are we
blue.
splitting hairs? I mean,
Well, definitely the concern was the logo. So if everyone's good with the logo being white with our colors on it so that we don't lose the blue and the brown, then I'm good to go with the logo and keeping the lettering as is, and then we'll go from there.
I would agree. I agree with Laura. I mean, the whole point was uniformity through the village, so I do like the logo. It pops better with the white background.
Okay.
I do,
All right.
too.
Thank you.
Attorney report?
No report.
Fire district not here. Village departments, finance, Mr. Hannah.
No report.
Community development, Mr. Toth.
No report.
Police chief Fisher.
No report.
Public works, Mr. Laskowski.
No report.
We have no executive session at this time. I have a motion for adjournment.
so moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn. Committee of the whole to start shortly.
Do you have to stay for this?
No.
Are you leaving?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't either then?
No.
Okay, I didn't think so. I think there's only been one other executive session since I've been here, and it was wages or something. And I knew I didn't have to stay for that.
If it's like personnel.
So I'd like to call to order the committee of the whole meeting on Monday, December 18th, 2017.
That's a good point.
Will the clerk call the roll, please?
Mayor Berman?
Here.
Trustee Lowry?
Here.
Trustee Curtis?
Here.
Trustee Carroll?
Here.
Trustee Martinez?
Here.
And Trustee Gately?
Here.
We have no audience comments signed up for. Trustee comments?
I have a comment I forgot to make in the last meeting, directed to Chief Fisher. Have we been getting a lot of complaints about Christmas lights being cut? I know personally somebody cut my projector light, and I was on a Facebook page for the neighborhood the past couple days, and I've noticed it seems like it's becoming a big deal on the east side. I back to Batavia, and I know that neighborhood has had a few, and just from my Facebook page from my neighborhood, there've been about 2 or 3 other people.
No, I haven't seen any reported. I read the daily logs every day, which records every single call that we go to, and I don't recall seeing any of them at all. I will certainly let the patrol supervisors know, that there are some issues up in your neighborhood there. But no, we haven't had any actually reported to the
Well,
police
it's just
department.
concerning because in the past year, we've had issues with car break-ins. And now, these projectors aren't cheap. I spent
Oh,
about
wow.
$45 on each one, and I had 2 that the cord was clearly cut. So, on the east side, I mean, typically, how many patrols a day are we seeing, or has anything increased? Because
Well,
it just seems like it's one thing after another.
Yeah,
lately.
there's always at least one officer in each district, which is 3 districts in town, east side being one of them. So it's impossible to say how many times they're through neighborhoods or anything like that. But, I'd like to say that they do a good job of patrolling around. But, sometimes if we get busy or we're down on an arrest or, things like that, and lately we have been busy with other stuff, they're not out quite as often as we would necessarily like, but, that's just a fact of life. But I will certainly let them know, and, we can pay attention to that area since, we haven't had any others, and now you're reporting it there. It clearly is something going on up in that neck of the woods, it sounds like.
I've seen a couple on the Tanner Trails Facebook too, people complaining they got their lights cut. I assume it's kids, but you never know.
What lights? The projector?
No, just their outside Christmas lights.
You know, we used to have those big bulbs, and they made such a great sound when you threw them at something, but we don't have that anymore, so.
No, everything's LED now.
Anything else in the trustee comments? All right, for discussion today, item 1, Opus site, Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In September of 2015, the village board approved a site plan for 1100 Orchard Gateway Boulevard. It's a 25-acre piece of property. The site plan that was approved is actually put up on the projector right now. As you can see, it's a $400,000 warehouse industrial building. And what you see on the screen here largely is what is developed out there right now, with the exception of the land bank parking on the northeast corner of the property. The property owners are now wanting to amend the site plan that was approved to accommodate some prospective tenants they have. So with that, I'll welcome Opus to come up and describe the change in the site plan and open for discussion for comment.
Mr. Mayor, trustees, thanks for having me. On behalf of building ownership, we've got 3 representatives from Opus Development Company based in Rosemont here with us, as well as 2 representatives from Personalization Mall, Bill Howard and Andrew Darren, which both will come up and speak to you about this deal after I'm done. Up on the screen right now, our architects in-house at our company have come up with what this would look like, what we're asking for you to consider approving. Ultimately, Personalization Mall, it's a wholly owned subsidiary of Bed Bath & Beyond. Many of you may have things from the company. My 8-month-old son just received a stocking with his name on it from his grandmother. So that type of product, that's what will be in this building. And it is very labor intensive. So the whole east side of the building we're asking to be converted to car parking for a total of roughly 1,100 car parking stalls. And this is a Google Earth image of the building as constructed, and then showing what that car parking lot would look like when completed. So the packet that I sent you, we got out on Randall, took photos of the berm, showed you our construction trailer is still out there, so you can still see that trailer even when you get up in Randall. So I think that this is ultimately going to be a better solution, and now that it's going to look a whole lot like the big box retail that this site was originally approved for. It'll have nice landscaped islands, parking lot lighting. If you zoom in, and Mike, I don't know if you can here, but we've shown some planter boxes in front of the existing dock doors here. In discussions with staff, that was something that they said, hey, that might be a good idea, because we're not going to come back. Those truck docks will not be used now, but we recognize that we're not going to rip up concrete pavement. The plan was just to restripe in that area to allow for car parking. So we want to dress up that side of the building, recognizing it is going to be the front of the building now.
And sorry to interrupt too, there's a site plan 11/17 that I provided everyone on the dais tonight. It's in the packet as well, but everyone should have a copy of this in front of them.
Yeah.
It shows the new site plan.
Yeah.
So are those parking spots all for employees?
They are. So it would be for permanent employees, and I can let Bill talk to this further, as well as Andrew. But they have a combination of permanent workforce as well as seasonal. You can imagine this time of year, there's quite a volume increase in their business. So there's a lot of temp labor that comes in, and they have to have the ability to park all those employees. So Christmas, Bill, what's another holiday?
Are you planning on, I'm not quite following, are you planning on changing the size of the building to accommodate a bigger parking lot?
No. So the building up on the screen right now, that's built, that's done. The only thing we're asking for you to consider is letting us add roughly 900 car parking stalls to the building. And
In the same space?
In the same space. So if you're familiar, let's see, I don't know if you can pull up a site plan. Out there right now is a big green space. There is roughly a 10-foot tall berm.
Oh, I see.
There's a 6-foot plateauing berm that was approved on the eastern portion of the property. There are pictures in the packet that was submitted by Opus. The berm actually conceals the building if you're standing on the ground, but if you're on Randall Road looking westbound, you can see the building. But there is a berm right now. This is all green space, Mike.
Okay.
on the east side, even this
I
area
got it.
down here. The new plan would include acquisition of the village-owned property down here, which we'll be discussing later. So they would include this entire eastern portion of the property. And then the truck space parking and trailer parking would ultimately become passenger vehicle parking.
Mike, how would that affect drainage? Don't we need that as a retention area with the original
The,
concept?
the engineers, at first glance, took a look at it and didn't think it would be an issue. A lot of what drains here goes to the BMP areas adjacent to Orchard Gateway, then ultimately drain out into the wetland area. But this would require review from them, so that would have to happen.
Keep in
I've
mind
got to
that,
say, I mean, I think 900 spaces, like, that's quite unsightly from the street. I mean, if there's any way we can reduce the number or increase the landscaping, I just don't, that's kind of our retail corridor. I don't want it to be a concrete jungle, if at all
Well,
possible.
recall that was approved as big box retail, so that's effectively what we're creating. So we're taking trucks and trailer parking and replacing with automobile parking and landscape car parking, shopping center type parking lots. And
Can
so
we
I
have-
think it's
can I see a
consistent with
yeah, thanks.
what you're after.
So mainly, the reason is because there's going to be more people working there.
Correct. So
So-
there's a huge number of jobs here, and Bill will speak to that. So this is a 12-year lease. They'll be in the building for a long time, bringing a lot of jobs to the village. And, it's not truck drivers and over-the-road guys that'll be here for a night. This is people that live here, work here, and ultimately, hopefully buy houses here.
Like, how many jobs do you think?
Maybe that's a good time to turn it over to Bill to just give you a background on the company,
I
if that's okay with you guys.
I just have a question, I guess, for Mike, before you do that,
Sure.
just about the site plan. Are we going to have any traffic issues since there's only one entrance and it's going to the right? I mean, we've got nothing coming off of Randall. Is there any reason why we couldn't put an entrance or ingress?
Well, there's
egress?
a couple things going here. When Opus put in this building here, they expanded Orchard Gateway. When this area was developed, it was developed originally with the intent of having a business retail corridor. So just like the engineering, the traffic was originally approved for that sort of capacity. And I think what you're going to find too in discussions with the end user is that it sounds like there are some fluctuations in their peak time periods. And I had the village engineer in the room discussing this site plan specifically, and at first glance, he did not think it would be an issue. But again, those things will be further reviewed should this proceed.
And so really, before I turn it over to Bill, we're up here asking for two things. So in order to meet the needs of Personalization Mall, we need to discuss an amended PUD to allow for this type of site plan. And then that southeast village-owned parcel is roughly 1.5 acres. We need to acquire that property in order to complete that site plan. And with that, Bill Howard, CEO of Personalization Mall.
Yeah, and there would be no public hearing associated with this. It would just be an amendment to the site plan. So just like we did for the dental office in Randall Highlands, it would just be an amendment to the ordinance approving the original site plan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Bill Howard. I'm the Chief Administrative Officer for PersonalizationMall.com, and with me is Andrew Darren.
It's Andrew Darren. I'm a Chief Operating Officer at Personalization Mall.
So we heard a few of your questions, and we're happy to answer those and any others that you have. I believe one of your initial questions was the issue with respect to how many employees we have. So right now, we operate out of our main headquarters in Burr Ridge, and we have a secondary facility in Bolingbrook. The facility in Burr Ridge is about 109,000 square feet, and the facility in Bolingbrook is also about 109. And then we have one smaller satellite warehouse in Burr Ridge that's about 22,000 square feet. So we've been very blessed and fortunate over the last 18 or 19 years to have experienced a lot of growth, high teen growth every single year. Andrew's actually been with the company.
Since about 99, about 20 years, 18 years or so.
He's actually employee number one and the real brains behind the operation in terms of how everything works. On the practical side, in terms of the employees, right now we have just over 200 full-time employees. We actually refer to them as team members. We really are a very flat horizontal organization. We don't have a CEO, we don't really have a president. We have team members, and we view each other as such, so that everybody is pulling for the team and rowing the boat in the same direction, we always hope. So right now, just over 200 full-time employees, and when we are going to move, which would be in 2019, we expect to have approximately 300 or slightly more full-time. We have, during the course of the year, peak periods. Our main peak is actually right now, and it starts about November 1st, and it goes through Christmas. And during this main peak time, our volume of product that is produced will go up 8 to 10 times what we would do in a normal day. So some of the questions about why all the parking and whatnot, one of the reasons that we require that much parking is we won't need that much all year long, but when we have our peak period, we'll add 700 or 800 total per shift in our Christmas peak period, and we will run approximately 24/7. There are gaps between the shifts right now, so that we have the egress of a shift ending and the ingress of a new shift coming on. That's a little bit staggered. We also have different departments. We have a little over 12 different types of production departments doing everything from, sandblasting on a wine glass to etching on wood or acrylic or glass to printing directly onto fabric for towels or robes or shower curtains. We make, unfortunately, my mistake, I actually had a box of product I was going to bring to show you what we do, but in our personalization mall description of plant operations, our website is www.pmall.com. It'll have the full panoply of products that we have. In any event, we have these more than 12 departments. They don't always stay the same length of time during peak or even during the year. So there is a staggered release and recovery of our shifts. So hopefully that answers the question regarding the parking and the number of people.
So are you consolidating your two other businesses into this one?
Correct,
Or
exactly.
three other?
Correct.
I see.
It's usually about 150 or so people coming in and going out at the same time. So we never have all 1,000 people trying to leave at the same time.
But I mean, like, are you, Bolingbrook and they're all coming to North Aurora?
Yes, they all close, and then we move our offices. And just to give you some other flavor about who we are and what we bring, we have all kinds of disciplines on the office side in terms of the types of team members that we have, everything from accounting, legal, marketing, information technology, buyers or merchandisers, print technology. We have full-time photographers that photograph our product, software development. So the company really, although it is a B2C e-commerce consumer-facing company, it is really, and Andrew is very humble about this, but he literally built this technology that allows us to do things that nobody else in the industry can do. It's very tech-savvy. It's proprietary software. And we can, for example, this year for peak, somebody could come on our website on Friday by 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We can ship it out, again, a personalized product that is very unique. We can ship it out so that they have it on Saturday the 23rd. So that's, to Andrew and his team's credit, that's what they do. So that's why we have enjoyed some success, thank God, and hopefully we will continue to do so. And we hope to continue to build not only our PMall family, but also help to grow the community that we would eventually move into, because we feel like we bring a lot of good jobs, good tax base, good responsible folks that would be good community members.
Are you saying that basically you're going to be changing the function of this building? Are these loading docks here in the front?
On the side that you're looking at that faces us,
Yeah.
that is all parking.
Right,
Correct,
and then,
they're
but
docks.
on the building itself, it looks like loading docks are there. Are you going to be using those with trucks and things, or
The backside.
Not
What?
this side.
what?
The opposite side, like to the right of the screen, that's where all the trucks will be for our docks.
Okay,
On the side that faces Randall Road, there will be only car parking.
okay, thanks.
Yeah,
That's
and
what I wanted
and
to know.
actually, in the rendering, with all of the islands and the trees and whatnot in there, it's virtually impossible, because we have that problem now at another property, it's almost impossible for the trailers to maneuver through there, so they have to use the back of the building. And we're sensitive to the aesthetics of the situation. We enjoy green space as much as the next person, but, this is going to be very tasteful. There's not an undue amount of traffic in and out at any one time, and we feel like we can handle it right now. In Burr Ridge, we have 400 or 500 people in there at one time. It's a very small area, and we have had no issues in terms of the traffic patterns.
Well, I'm glad to hear, your business model is doing well and that you've been having a lot of growth. When I think about what our goals have been for the village, one of our big goals has been to increase our daytime population. And if this is something that is going to take us a step toward reaching that goal, then as long as we could do this tastefully and be mindful and be a good neighbor, then I don't have a problem with it.
So anyhow, my question was, you normally have 200 employees, but at peak time you have 700?
Per shift, yes. It could be 700, 800 per shift, correct.
And that could last at 2 or 3 times a year at different peak seasons?
Yeah, the real
Mostly Christmas.
Yeah, the real meat of it is the Christmas
Christmas.
holiday season. And our second biggest peak would be Mother's Day, third would be Valentine's, fourth Father's Day, Easter-ish, then back to school, some Halloween. But during those times, we'll hire between, 50 and 200 seasonals or temp workers. And the other nice thing about it is that as we, again, have been very fortunate to grow, we've been able to add the people that come in as temp workers and seasonal workers. A lot of times we're able to add them into our full-time staff. And one of the problems that we've had with the broken up facilities is it's difficult to make everything mesh from 3 different buildings. We hope and feel that we'll have a lot more efficiencies and a lot more synergies and probably be able to grow a little quicker and bring some more people on full-time quicker.
Yeah, you could if you merge it.
And part of the plan is not just the production and distribution, and it's actually going to be our corporate headquarters. So it'll be about close to 100 office staff as well.
I'm having a hard time hearing you. I don't know if you can talk.
Part of our plan is to make this building, it's not just the distribution and production, but also our corporate headquarters. So we'll have about 100 office staff within that facility. So it's not just the low-paying type of positions, it's more of a corporate level positions as well.
I'm fine with the parking.
I am too. I'm happy
fine
to
with it.
see that this is more in line with what the original vision was, and we're bringing workers. So I'm all for it.
I don't see how this can go wrong. I mean, I'd rather have appealing cars than appealing semis. And you guys are a very reputable company, and I like to see the jobs here. So thank you.
Well, thank you for listening, and any other questions or open issues we can.
When are you looking to get it done? When's the timeline?
We hope to, so right now, with a little luck and a little planning, all of our other lease obligations end at December of 19. So the idea is for us to be up and running with all the bugs worked out of the system, hopefully, by August or so of 19. So we would be, if it all goes as planned, we would be essentially operational at July of 19, working out the bugs, being fully operational for August of 19, and then pick it up from there.
So you'd be here for the holiday season of, presumably of 2019, adding more.
God willing. Yes. That's the plan.
Can we make sure that we have some trees and some, what do you call, landscaping that is appropriate to?
So this was without having our guys go back through and look at village code. This was, let's throw on what typically we see in terms of site lighting. We obviously will meet code there. We want to make this a very consistently lit, safe parking lot for when they do have peak season. But also, we're interested too to have landscape islands. There is green space requirements. That needs to be in play here. It can't be, for lack of a better term, a mall parking lot where it's just pavement.
Like I put in the staff report too, the original site plan approving ordinance had no truck parking in the land banked parking area that's shown on the original site plan. If I can just go to that really quick, which was this area here. Now, if we want to move forward, we can just keep the conditions the same and move forward with the prohibition of truck parking along the eastern portion of the property. That's one thing that we can keep in the ordinance as a condition, so there would be no truck parking allowed on the eastern portion of the property. And one other thing up for discussion is if we're talking about landscaping, when the original PUD was amended in 2013 to accommodate the industrial side of what was lot 20 here, I think there was a concession for the amount of parking lot islands. Code requires every 10 spaces have an island. When they went industrial in 2013, I believe it was changed to 15. So if there's some consideration, we can work with the property owner to come up with a number that meets the parking, but also maybe is more in line with the original 10 per space parking lot landscape island provision.
Right, and something you'll see on the screen there, what our guys have shown is back-to-back islands. So you don't have, so where you get the two parking stall deep, you get a much better chance of either having grass grow in that, so that it's not all mulch, if ultimately you don't want mulch islands. The bigger the better. So that's what's reflected there is effectively two islands for each island that you see.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I think the significant thing is we're talking about 1.5 acres that the village owns on the southeast corner. So everybody's aware of that. All right, any other questions, any other comments? Thank you very much. Item number 2, Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quick. All right. In 2016, in February of 2016, the village purchased the property at 24 South Lincoln Way, which is the northwest corner of John Street and Lincoln Way, which you can see here. The property is located in the B3 Central Business District. Coffee shops and tea houses are classified as a permitted use, while drive-throughs are considered a special use. When we originally met with the board to discuss this property in October of 2016, we had a discussion about what were some of the desirable uses and what were some of the non-desired uses. One of the desired uses that came out of the conversation was to have franchise restaurants and coffee shops. So in doing that, in discussions, we've kind of taken that with us when we meet with different prospective business owners, franchisees, and as such, staff's been working with the group looking to do a standalone coffee shop on the property located at 24 South Lincoln Way. The concept plan is right in front of us here on the projecting screen. Everyone also has an 11 by 17 on the dais, which kind of illustrates what they're looking to do. It would be a 678 square foot standalone drive-through building with adequate parking and stacking and traffic movement on site to accommodate the influx of anticipated traffic during peak hours. But not to get too far in depth on the site plan, I want to welcome the Miller family up and kind of discuss maybe the site plan itself, maybe the business operations, a little bit more about who they are and what they're looking to do on the property. And I'd be happy to answer any questions the board might have.
Thank you, Mike. My name is Scott Miller. Thanks for taking time. That's most of my family back there. We live in almost North Aurora. It's actually, we live on Deer Path in what's the part of Batavia that the city of Batavia doesn't really give us credit for. And this property kind of came up in a discussion with Mike. I've been looking for a spot for drive-through coffee for a couple of years now. This was my dream to do something like this before we moved our family back to Illinois from California, where I met my wife. In fact, we spent 2 years on a business plan in California, but couldn't find a location. And so I kind of dropped it, and we moved to Illinois, where I grew up in the Fox Valley area. And I joined the family business, which is, we have a commodity brokerage business downtown Geneva. And I've learned a lot about the challenges with a family business. It's been really good and educational too. But this location would be ideal for what I'm looking to do. I've been passionate about coffee for many, many years. And my wife knows that we've wanted to do something like this, and we met a lady, that's actually her there in the blue. Her name is Joan, up in Wisconsin. There's 7 stores that are primarily they're all drive-throughs, but some have some sit-down seating. And we really like the business format they have, and we got to know her. We've been up and visited her several times, and we're really impressed with her blueprint, and her store is exactly what I would like to have down here. And so we've been working with her to put together a business partnership, so to speak, where I can own and operate the business of my dream down here, but use her blueprint so I'm not reinventing the wheel. The idea with this location would be this picture that you're seeing right here is a drive-through only with a walk-up window. It's on a very small, very sharp corner up in La Crosse. They have 2 stores in La Crosse. They have 2 stores in Rochester, 2 in Madison, and 1 in Onalaska, if you've ever heard of that. It's just outside of La Crosse, Wisconsin. Some of their stores have 2 drive-through windows, 1 on each side, but this lady, Joan, who also happens to own the local Honda dealership in La Crosse, she is very fastidious about her designing, and she is very passionate about her stores. And she has a architect designer, ISG is the name of the company. That's who put this site plan together. They think through the whole process and the look and the construction and everything in grave detail. And so we've been talking with her and have come to a point where if I could just find a right location, and I think this would be a great location for this. The idea is to start out with just a drive-through, and hopefully down the road have some indoor seating as well. So the site plan, if you can, it's a little hard to see. If you look at the building area, it seems like a small building for such a large lot. And that's okay. It's a small building. It's not necessarily a super small business. She has shared with me all of her, she's been very, very generous with sharing all of her financials and plan and designs and everything. And her business does very, very well. But it has to be in the right location, and the flow for traffic has to be thought out and be just right. This building that you're looking at here, the drive-through is where those cars are, the drive-up window. And then the brick area, it would be a front patio. I also, I'm a musician. In fact, my whole family are musicians. And we've played at a lot of coffee shops over the years. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, they're not designed to have visiting musicians for the most part. And so we're passionate about coffee and music. We'd like to have a patio where there could be some live music or something when it's nice weather where people can sit outside and there'd be enough room to have something that's a plug-and-play situation for either some live music or even sometimes an open mic for families that have teenagers that want to play, you know, if they aren't too crazy, and you know what I mean? Maybe a little bit of a...
Unplugged.
Yeah, an unplugged version, yeah, has to be vetted. But the idea would be, it's that building, and that building includes a 2 public restroom on that north end. We feel like it's really important to, especially if you're going to have outdoor seating at all, there's got to be like a nice, to me, you go to any restaurant, if it's a crummy bathroom, it's just kind of a turnoff. And so we
Yes.
want it to be first class in terms of their logo is clean, their product is great. There's an image somewhere up here, Mike, with the menu board, maybe? That's their current menu board right there. You can see that it's clean. They have a great graphic design gal that works out in New York. They have great product. We haven't tried it all, but their base stuff is great. The idea would be that the drive-through only and walk-up window patio 2 restrooms, could eventually be expanded because of this whole center area. It's a pretty good-sized lot. And even though it's a good-sized lot, the building needs to look right on that lot. So that's part of the reason there's a lot of landscaping. And the reason there's a fair amount of parking here is because down the road, there's room for expansion, that there could be a seating area, and then we'd move the patio to the north. It wouldn't be a huge seating area, but it'd be nice to provide something and still have a patio. But I think that for starters, the drive-through would be the phase 1 for this location. My kind of big dream picture is to have 3 stores in 5 years. And I would love to have them in this area. We live close by. I plan on being hands-on in this project. It's not just an investment. This is what I want to do for the rest of my working days. My wife permits. And this is what I want to do. I'm going to be here every day, hands-on. I won't be here all day, but I'll be super involved at anything that we design and do, and that's what I want to do.
So I have a quick question. Why the hesitation to do the indoor seating right off the bat? Why
Sure.
not just do that instead of having to incur additional building expenses and operation slowdowns and things that would go on with the renovation?
Sure. Part of it is, first of all, the indoor seating adds very little to the bottom line for this type of store. In fact, I was talking the other day with Joe and the owner, and I said, we talked about the difference between the drive-through only and the sit-down and some of their financials. We were comparing stores that have and don't have. There's very little difference, but there's a lot more overhead. This store right now without indoor seating is about 12 to 15 employees on staff, most of them part-time. It's just mostly a numbers game. I think it would be nice to have, but to start out, I think it would be smarter to have just a drive-through. That's where 95% of the business is through the drive-through. So I would like to expand it to that when it's more convenient, not because it's less risk up front. And we're trying to plan it so it'd be easy to add on down the road.
I do have one concern. We've been working on improving the appearance of Route 31 from which your proposed establishment is included in that area. And looking at this one picture where it shows, I don't know if you can see it, it's, this one here.
Yep.
It shows the menu board, and right behind it are all your mechanicals exposed, kind of. Is that in the front of the building, or?
This particular building, that's in the back of the building. That's where the ordering is. Part of the reason is because this is a very small building. It's quite a bit smaller even than this one.
Oh.
And the reason they did that one so small is because they literally, this looks like a big parking lot, but it is not. It's extremely small. They were trying to utilize every square foot they could. In this case, I don't think you'll see any of that. Another factor to consider, just to let you know, the culture of this particular business is it's very much a service-oriented, hands-on. There's not even a speaker at the order board. Somebody pulls up, they're met with a person. It's a face-to-face conversation. If there's nobody in line, they come right up to the window. But it's not a speaker and you're a number.
Let me, in terms of my own personal perspective on the whole thing, I think it's a great idea, and I'm all for a coffee shop in our town here, and I couldn't go wrong with that. It's just that this to me looks unsightly, and I don't know where it's exposed in this particular building, but the utilities or the mechanicals sticking right out there and exposed, I would prefer that they be a little bit more decoratively hidden or something.
Yeah, I can speak to that too. Thank you for your feedback too, because if we decide to proceed with this project, that's something that would be addressed during the site plan review process, also the special use process required through entitlement. The zoning ordinance requires screening of rooftop mechanicals, but in this case too, I'm not sure what the code is in Wisconsin, but through that we would also, you could actually require whether it be landscape screening or some sort of screening element to go around any mechanical equipment, whether it be on the roof or the ground. That can certainly be a condition of approval.
I have a question. Are those the prices that you're charging that's on the reader board now, or is that just a mock-up?
That's current. That's what they have at their Onalaska store right now.
So that's what it would be like for a cup of coffee, $1.70?
It would be very similar.
All right. That's kind of like Starbucks.
It's very similar to Starbucks. I think it's a little better product. And we could sure get into that, but I don't think anyone wants to hear all that.
I happen to be
But to
an
answer your question about the mechanicals, on that picture, just so you know, you can't see it, but on the end of that corner, there's only 2 parking spots, and then there's a stall for trash, but it's all landscaped on that corner behind it. So the only time you would see this, and I know what you're saying, it's an eyesore right there, but you don't see it from any direction of the road, but you do see it when you pull up, and they're trying to figure out how to deal with that because they just simply don't have enough space in that small of a building. They had an opportunity to make it work on that corner. The city wanted it, they went for it, but that was one of the sacrifices they made with running out of space.
Get some simple cladding could probably take care of that.
Yeah, I'm sure that,
That
and
would be
there'll
the
be a lot
thing
of
you'd be-
landscaping here that we can
When
cover.
you make your final design, just kind of keep that idea in mind that we want to be an attractive strip there as much as
Absolutely.
possible,
We want it to be
given what's there.
first class, really look great, really look sharp.
Okay.
What's the hours? Would you be,
Well, that's a great question. The hours they have right now, on average with these stores, they open at 5 and start serving around 6:30 and close at 8. Some of the stores are different depending on where they are. Some are in college town, some are on commuter routes. Because of this particular location on 31, I think earlier is better.
yes.
I think because, you know, we all know how early you have to get on 88 to get downtown. I think open no later than 6 for sure, and I would like it to coincide with some of the other stuff that's open there too. But I think 6 would be the latest, maybe 5:30 to open. And I don't think staying open past 8 o'clock makes any sense, probably.
So they come in off of Route 31, order their coffee, and then, is that a right in, right out there?
There on the, it's kind of, just to get perspective too, this area here, I don't know if I can put the pointer, you have basically a right in off of 31. You have 2 right ins, you have a sole right in, a right in, right out, and then on John Street, you have a full access or access point, which is located in the staff report as well. So they did pay a lot of attention to access. This was professionally done. Again, we had this conversation with the village attorney, or excuse me, village engineer taking a look at this, and we kind of agreed that the movements are pretty spot on. Our village zoning ordinance only requires 3 stacking spaces. You can see here too, there's clearly more than 3 spaces, and the site does move well. So as Scott mentioned earlier, it's a small store, but it's actually a pretty big operation.
Yeah, they got
I'm
you
sure
moving out.
you've all driven through Portillo's when they have, not to compare the 2 businesses, but when you have standalone ordering, the drive-through can back up. So it's nice, it does flow very nice on the property.
Is there any odor? I mean, I know coffee smells, but sometimes, but does the odor carry because we've got residential right there?
Right.
You mean the aroma?
The aroma would be very minimal. The only place that you really have that issue is when you have a roaster. Those roasters almost smell like burnt toast when they're roasting, and they're kind of noisy. There wouldn't be any of that.
Okay. So there'd be like the Folgers commercial where they're waking up all happy at Christmas time?
It's not Folgers, and they will be happier than Folgers at Christmas time.
I think it looks great. It's certainly an improvement from what was there before. I
agree.
I think coffee's gonna be it's a good place for it too. I agree. I think that's a nice location.
Yeah, thanks. There's really nothing from St. Charles to Route 88 on Route 31 on the west side of the street. There's not one place I can think of.
No, there isn't.
Yeah.
We had this discussion before on the board.
I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good. So then we have item number 3, Mike.
A lot of positive energy coming the last 2 items, so hopefully we can kind of continue moving forward with this one. At the November 20th Village Board meeting, we had 2 residents that came in to speak against sort of our provisions regarding recreational vehicles. As you are, Chapter 13 of the zoning ordinance regulates recreational vehicles. In the staff report, I included the ordinances from 2013, 2014, as there have been several amendments to the zoning ordinance since adoption in 2013. I've highlighted the changes from 2013. I've highlighted the changes from 2014. But just trying to get a sense of what the residents were concerned about and some discussion with back and forth from village board during that time. I came up with some draft provisions, which I've included in the packet tonight. And I've also included just a quick summation of those changes, which is on the second page of the staff report. Some of the changes that we'd be looking to do would be to, first, we would break out utility trailers from recreational vehicles. I believe in 2013, they were basically, the issue was that they did not want utility trailers or work-type trailers on properties. So as a means to effectively regulate them, we included them as recreational vehicles. So as part of this amendment, we would actually be basically pulling utility trailers out of recreational vehicles and basically monitoring them or regulating them as they currently are right now. So there would be no change to utility trailers. Second, we would allow residents to park one recreational vehicle in front of the front elevation of the residence between April 1st and October 31st. After looking at various communities, there's a small chart included in the packet. Some other communities kind of regulate in the same way. Again, you would have one recreational vehicle being allowed in the front of the house between April 1st and April 1st and October 31st. And also, too, we would have to change some of the definitions to sort of accommodate the regulations that we created.
Mike, how does this address the concerns of the gentleman that spoke at the meeting a few weeks back, about a month ago? Because his concern was this time of year, January, February, March, where he would, be coming out on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I was a little unclear as I went through it, how we would be addressing that. Is that something we were going to change, or are we still going to keep it as is and only just separate the utility trailer?
Well, they were specifically talking about recreational vehicles, so that is something that's up for discussion. When you open these topics for discussion, there's many different ways you can go about it. You could basically still allow for the weekends for that time period during the entire year, and then just open up April to October. I mean, you could pretty much do anything that any direction that you want to head in this case.
Is the idea of the rule or the law or the ordinance so that people just don't permanently park their RV in an unsightly place on their property?
Correct,
Well,
yeah.
then if they are, what does it say here? Loading, unloading, cleaning, or servicing, if they're in the active act of processing or doing something with their vehicle, that would be different than permanently parking there. Can't we just make that a part of the ordinance, that as long as they're cleaning it, they can have it there? Because the guy said he just needed an extra 12 or 24 hours beyond the Monday from the weekend because he's this dog trainer or something. And I don't see a problem with him doing that on a Tuesday instead of on a Monday.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Originally, that's the direction I was looking to go with this. The issue is that it's harder to regulate. If someone has their recreational vehicle in on a Tuesday, it's sometimes hard. You get into a situation where you're having to very closely monitor the situation, and it sometimes can create conflict with the residents. This was here yesterday. No, it was not. If you look at what we did in 2013, we originally you could do it during the times that are listed on the front page of the staff report, being Friday to Monday, April 15th and 30th, October 1st, October 15th, and you could also do a 48-hour time frame between. Well, what happened was it only opened up like maybe a day or two where you couldn't have it there. So in 2013, we removed the 48-hour window as well. Another approach would be to keep it as is, but allow a 24-hour period within the week. But I will say, though, from a enforcement perspective, it's a lot more challenging and difficult to do so. So that's something that came in mind.
I'm sitting here thinking, what's the harm? In if somebody parks their RV there permanently, it's going to be there for a week and 2 weeks and 3 weeks and a month, and pretty soon someone's going to notice it and complain about it, or one of our police officers will drive by and repeatedly seeing it there, might stop in, or a code enforcer might stop. Somebody would see it. I don't know if constant monitoring would be necessary, if somebody is working on their RV, why not allow it to be there at any time? As long as it's only there for a day or two.
Well, I think it is so it doesn't become a permanent storage solution. There was no limit back when. We actually changed it to only allow one to be stored in the backyard because what would happen was that you could have you could have multiple recreational vehicles, utility trailers. From a zoning standpoint, you were almost changing the use of a property from a single-family residence property to almost a storage yard. So that's why if you look in the code, I think it was 2014, we limited it to one being parked, 2013, we limited it to one being parked on the property. In 2014, we lifted the screening requirement because what happened was that people were then moving them back, but they didn't have a fence, and then they had to then move their recreation vehicle in the back, and they had to pay to have a fence put up. So in 2014, we removed the screening requirement, allowed them to park one recreation vehicle behind the front facade of the home.
I am a little bit afraid here. I want to help the people. I think that you can do it in a reasonable manner, and then I get the enforcement. It's going to be a challenge, but here, really, the only reason you would enforce it is if a neighbor complained. I mean, that's when you're going to find out about it, rather than having Rhonda or a police officer driving around the neighborhood looking for RVs or boats. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But if a neighbor says, hey, they've had their RV parked there for a week and they haven't moved it, that's when you're probably going to send somebody out. But with that being said, I think that I'm a little hesitant to say, oh, it's okay to just park your RV between April and October, period, and not have any I'd rather see something like you're allowed to park for like no more than 72 hours in any 7-day period. It's difficult to enforce, but again, your neighbor's going to complain if your RV's parked there for 2 weeks.
Well, I assumed it was, it's okay to park at any time as long as they're servicing it, right? They can't just keep it there from April 1st all the way through October 31st.
Not in the new one. In the new one, I thought it was just.
Yeah, you could do one, carte blanche. Basically, though, there are a couple of stipulations I did put in the amendments, and you can't block a sidewalk, which is already in the code anyways. We just added that to that provision to be very clear about it. And also, too, is that the recreational vehicle has to be in ownership of the resident or the occupant or property owner. Therefore, you couldn't store your friend's boat on the property. It'd have to be your licensed and registered recreational vehicle.
You're thinking of the old ordinance required it for loading or unloading, but they deleted that language.
Yeah, no,
in the proposal.
I think what you're trying to say, Trustee Lowry, is that what we did was, if you look the way it's written now, in the very front page of the staff report, you have Friday noon to Monday noon. That's a weekend. That assumes you're bringing it home, unloading it, going camping, going boating, having a good time. Number 2 is April 15th through April 30th, and then October 1st through October 15th, all inclusive. I mean, you can keep it there for those 2 weeks during those time periods. That's intended to bring it out of storage, close it up at the end of the season.
Sense.
Yeah,
I didn't understand that.
That's the way it is right now.
Oh, it is? Mm-hmm. As it exists now?
Correct.
But it doesn't allow for anything between October and April. You're not allowed to keep an RV or a boat on your property at all.
Unless it's Friday noon to Monday noon.
Oh, I thought both those conditions had to be met. I thought it had to be Friday noon to Monday noon in the months between April and October.
Well, no, the way it's written right now is that you can only have it on Friday noon to Monday noon, inclusive, or you can also have it during the 2-week period of April 15th through the 30th and October 1st to the 15th. The way it's written now, you could have one from April 1st in front of your property to October 31st.
That's the new one. That's the one you.
That's as proposed, correct.
Right.
For clarification, you asked, though, if from October to April, so
Right.
the fall and the winter, can you still store one on your property? Is that correct?
Right, so
Okay.
you could still do it in the weekends between, right now? The way it's written right now, not the proposal, but the way it exists right now, could I keep an RV on my property for the weekend?
Yes. But in this one, it's taken out on the weekends, and it's just basically from, and we can include that, so that way year-round, you could do Friday noon to Monday noon. The whole point being is that those sorts of vehicles are predominantly used during the warm weather, your boat, your RV, camper, so on and so forth. So that's why it was removed from Friday noon to Monday noon. You could keep that if you want, and that could be a yearly thing. You could do every weekend, you could have it there, from Friday noon to Monday noon. And then also too, you could have the one, from April 1st to October 31st. Like I said, it's just a matter of it becomes tricky to enforce. We try to enforce, what we can. It is mostly on a complaint basis, so you are opening yourself up to having storage of a recreational vehicle on the property during those time periods. But again, those are recreation vehicles, not utility trailers. Utility trailers we would still monitor as we do right now.
The issue I have is what Laura brought up at the beginning, is we still, if on a Tuesday, the guy who was here in the last meeting, or about the dog show, he would not be allowed to do it at this, right now.
Correct. Correct.
And so I think that the dates that we're inserting, the April to October, the 2 weeks, are arbitrary. I think if we're going to have a ordinance, it should be year-round. I mean, because the practical matter is, most people aren't going to have their RV parked in their front yard in the winter. But there might be one or two, there might be somebody that has a lot down in Florida that wants to pull their RV and drive it down there, or there might be the person that uses it for business purposes.
I think I think it's important to note too is, if I'm not mistaken, one of the gentlemen that was here in November was using the recreational RV as an enterprise, for business use. So that again, that created that issue there.
Well, I think you did a lot of work on it, Mike. You're a very thorough guy, I gotta say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I tend to agree with, not to interrupt, but, I think we're just making this a simple situation more
Yes, I
difficult
agree.
than
I
it needs
agree.
to be. Leave it, any weekend, year-round. I think it's arbitrary to say, because, we had 70-degree days in November this year. So that's one thing I wouldn't mind getting away with. My big concern is, and, from personal experience, I've got people that have multiple trailers, boats, things like that, and I just want to make sure that we're not going to have to deal with somebody parking a nuisance. You get 3-4 boats, trailers, and stuff up and down the block in the summer, and it becomes unsightly. So that's what I'm trying to avoid.
This would limit it to one. So again, there are different parameters you could do, just to avoid a situation where it becomes a storage lot. You could open it up to all year round, but you just have to be cautious, because then that person is no longer putting that in storage. Now it's a permanent fixture on the property. But again, too, is that
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying keep the weekend, keep it from Friday to Sunday year round, instead of ending it in October.
and then go from and also allow that period from April to October 31st.
Yeah, I like the idea of,
Okay.
pack up, put away, get it ready for the season. I think that's probably even necessary.
Okay, so you're basically saying, as it's drafted in the back there, keeping everything the same, but just keep number 1, Friday noon to Monday noon inclusive as well. So that way year-round,
Right,
they could
keep
do
that
it. Okay.
year-round. And, if a gentleman needs to unpack his trailer on 1 or 2 Tuesdays, hey, good luck, maybe nobody will see you. But, thinking of his neighbor too, if this guy's constantly, every week in and out with his trailer, it now isn't an RV, it is an enterprise vehicle. And, you kind of have to, where do you draw the boundary? How about the people that live next to this who have to look at this thing all the time? So, shame on him or shame on the neighbor. If that's the type of business you're going to have, then maybe you shouldn't be living in a traditional residential district.
Yeah, and this also doesn't preclude HOAs from establishing bylaws. I know the neighborhood that I live in, you can't store anything in your driveway, so that wouldn't change that. But, so as it's drafted now, we want to kind of just move forward, and we can look to tweaks, but keep number A1, and allow them to have it on the weekends. That would kind of satisfy them, bring it home the weekends to, whether it be show dogs or whatnot, to kind of move forward with that.
All right, you got enough?
Yeah, thank you. Again, you can still store it year-round, but again, as I said earlier, it's, as long as it's behind the house, you can still store one.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that this is relative to the driveway, basically, or the
Right.
corner side yard. You
In
can
the
still
front.
store it in your backyard as long as it's screened year-round.
I don't know, I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
A lot of work.
All right.
You were shaking your head? You got something to say?
No, I was actually thinking about what Laura was thinking there. I'm just trying to understand it, but, I mean, this would be something I would be concerned with. I have a next-door neighbor that has an RV, and I think I'm thinking a lot like you, Laura. He would love to store that thing on his house all summer long, on his driveway. And I think that's what you're trying to avoid. Is that
Yeah.
But is that what you're trying to allow?
Well, as of right now, it's the way it's drafted. You could keep it April 1st to October 31st, one recreational vehicle. Again, it's not utility share, it's one recreational vehicle.
Behind the house.
The whole entire time. No, you could have one
driveway.
in front of the house from April 1st to October 31st at all times.
Is that allowed now?
No, that's
No.
the proposal.
That's-
That's what's in the
I
proposal.
don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I want to keep the weekend regulation, and then that 2-week period in the beginning of the season and the end of the season.
Yeah, I have the board as saying that you want to keep everything the way it is now, except you want to allow people to be able to park on the driveways year-round during that weekend period.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
Because the April to October dates are just arbitrary end dates. But we don't want to have somebody bring their RV in April, park it in their front driveway until October.
Yeah, the way it is now, you could park it in the driveway year-round. The way it is right now, you can park it in your driveway year-round,
On the weekends
on the weekends.
only.
And, correct. And then that period between April 15th and April 30th, and then October 1st through October 15th. That's the way it is right now.
Leave it the way it is, and
So
if it's
if
not
I-
accommodating to every single person with an RV, I mean, it is what it is.
I'm okay with that.
So you want to keep it the same.
Yeah.
Now, so I can park my boat in my driveway on the weekends?
All year round.
Now, what if I use it on the weekends? Can I park it there during the week?
No.
No. You can park it weekends year-round right now.
But you got to have it gone by noon on Monday.
Correct.
Okay. That's it?
That's it.
Good enough. Item number 4. John?
Yes, Mayor. Earlier in the year, a few residents from the Summerwind subdivision approached us with some potential improvements to the subdivision pavement markings in that area. Staff reviewed those, and there were 3 improvements they were talking about initially. There were some pavement markings they'd like to put down at the exit of the subdivision that would delineate a left turn and a straight-through movement and a right turn lane. So it would basically take a 1-lane road which has enough width to make 2 lanes and kind of delineate traffic so residents could get in, make that right turn movement without being blocked by people going left or straight. So we took a look at that, and it seems like that makes a lot of sense. It's an improvement that the staff supports at this time, and I think is a good improvement to the traffic flow in the subdivision. In addition to that, on the back of the memo, there's a picture kind of showing this area. Staff is proposing putting some stop signs there now because the growth from the vegetation has increased. It makes the sight lines a little bit more difficult, and we think it's a matter of safety right now to get those stop signs up to prevent any traffic that's coming in at maybe a higher rate of speed into the subdivision from conflicting with anybody trying to make a turn movement out of the subdivision, or even passing through from East Victoria onto Hidden Creek Lane. So those are 2 of the improvements that we'd like to move forward with, that we think are a good idea if the board's in agreement. There was a 3rd outstanding issue that we're continuing to research, and that was the parking stalls. There were some issues that where parking stalls were painted out in the subdivision, and we took a look at those, and staff, what we did was compare what would be allowed per ordinance and kind of compare it to how many cars are actually parking in that area right now to see if there would be more cars able to park along the curb or if the number of spots would be reduced. So we're in conversation with the Homeowners Association at this point, talking over the results with them and getting their input to see what's going to work best for the majority of the residents there. We do have a couple other solutions that we think may potentially add a few spots there that would accommodate the residents there a little bit better. So that's kind of a status of where we're at with that right now. Once we hear more about that, the parking stall issue, we'll bring that back to board for further discussion.
And I want to.
I can tell you that I am all for the stop signs. The first time I drove in there, I almost got T-boned. I said, they need a stop sign here, and I think I said something to Steve back then, too. So I'm all for the arrows and the stop signs.
Okay.
I do have a question, though. Why wouldn't you go straight and have the lane go right turn and then straight? Is there some...
Oops.
I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think with the right turn, you're freeing up the movement for people to go right. I think the thought behind it was just that if you're making a left turn, you're going to have to wait for traffic to be clear going.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe the HOA said that it really was effective in the mornings when everyone's leaving the subdivision.
Is that a one-way street that goes around?
No.
Or is it two-way? Have we ever considered making it a one-way street circle?
Well, then you got
Well,
the
but then
person.
your parking problem's
Yeah.
solved.
Well-
Because you'd have parking all along the side, because it's a very narrow street.
Yeah, but then the people on the east side would have to drive all the way around the west side to get to,
Well, it's a circle, though.
well, it's a long circle. I guess you'd have to have a traffic, somebody
Yeah.
that'd study traffic to figure that out.
Garage is right
Yeah.
there on the left. I got to drive all the way around.
One of the things that we're looking to do
All
with
right,
this
you got
is.
enough?
I got enough.
What was that?
Good
Go ahead,
enough.
Steve.
I said one of the things we're looking to do is work with the HOA. This is the first time that we've had an HOA come to us with a request. I could take that back. We had a similar request for parking signs up on LOB Court a while back. And what we learned in that situation was when we're moving forward with a request from an HOA, we want to make sure that they have the backing of the residents that they represent. So one of the reasons we decided not to go forward with the striping discussion tonight was A, we were finishing up some of our own information that we were putting together, but B, we'd like them to actually meet with us, hear our findings, and then take it to an actual HOA board meeting where they can either vote or formally request the village to look at it so that we know we get the backing of the HOA and they have the backing of the residents they represent.
That's a good idea.
Just to be safe.
Yeah.
So that should be back in January or early February.
All right.
Very good.
Well, that's the end of our discussions. We need a motion to go to executive session to review and release of executive session minutes.
Motion to adjourn and go
discuss
to,
property acquisition and
Sale.
sale of item number 1 and item number 2, and so I entertain a motion to do that.
motion to adjourn and go to executive session.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we're going to executive session. We will not be returning. Thank you very much.